The stars outside the viewport looked different this far from Earth. Ji-hoon pressed his hand against the cold glass and watched the massive space station grow larger as their ship approached. The station was beautiful in a strange way. It looked like someone had carved it from a single piece of crystal. Light bent through its walls and created rainbows in the darkness of space. "First time meeting royalty?" Hana asked from behind him. She was checking her translation device for the third time that hour. Ji-hoon turned and smiled. "First time meeting aliens who think humans are basically insects." "They don't think we're insects," Woojin said. The security officer was cleaning his sidearm even though regulations said they couldn't bring weapons to the meeting. "They think we're mayflies. We live fast and die young," Taeyang laughed from the medical station. "Compared to them, we do. 2,000 years. Can you imagine living that long?" Ji-hoon couldn't imagine it. He was 32 years old. The Valorian queen they were about to meet had been ruling her empire for 600 years. She had been a queen when humans were still figuring out how to build proper rockets. The thought made him feel very small. The communication panel beeped. A voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded like wind chimes. "Human vessel. You are cleared for docking. Follow the guidance lights to Base 7. Welcome to Crystalline Station." Their ship moved smoothly into the docking bay. Through the window, Ji-hoon could see Valorian workers moving around. They looked almost human from a distance, but their skin caught the light wrong. It took him a moment to realize why. Their bodies were made of some kind of living crystal. They moved carefully, deliberately, like people walking on ice. The airlock opened with a hiss. Ji-hoon straightened his diplomatic uniform and stepped out first. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal. The air smelled clean, almost sterile, with a faint hint of ozone. A group of Valorians waited for them. The leader stepped forward. His body was pale blue crystal, and his eyes glowed softly from within. "I am Ambassador Velrin. Queen Ravia sends her greetings. Please follow me." "ND3. I'm Live Kane scented." They walked through corridors that seemed to be grown rather than built. The walls were smooth crystal that glowed with internal light. Other Valorians passed them, all moving with that same careful grace. Ji-hoon noticed that none of them ever bumped into each other or brushed against the walls. "They're afraid of breaking," Hana whispered. Ji-hoon had read the briefing files. Valorian bodies couldn't heal. A crack in their crystalline structure was permanent. A major fracture could kill them. They lived their long lives in constant caution. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into refracted light. Pillars of crystal rose from the floor like frozen fountains. At the far end of the room, on a throne that seemed to be part of the floor itself, sat Queen Ravia. Ji-hoon had seen pictures, but they hadn't prepared him. The queen was stunning. Her body was made of crystal that shifted between deep purple and brilliant gold. Light moved through her like she was made of captured starlight. She was tall, perhaps 7 feet, and when she stood to greet them, she moved like water. "Humans," she said. Her voice was clear and cold. "You honor us with your presence." Ji-hoon bowed the way the cultural files had taught him, not too deep, not too shallow. "Your Majesty, Earth sends its gratitude for this meeting. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples." The queen's glowing eyes studied him. "Friendship. An interesting word. Your species has existed for such a brief time. You reach for the stars before you have even learned to stop killing each other. Why should the Valorian Empire bind itself to mayflies?" The words were harsh, but Ji-hoon had expected them. "Because mayflies, Your Majesty, know how to adapt. We live short lives, so we learn fast. We make mistakes, but we fix them. We fall down, and we get back up." Something flickered in the queen's eyes. Interest, maybe. Or amusement. Pretty words. We shall see if they have substance. The next hour was full of formal negotiations, trade routes, technology exchanges, cultural programs. The Valorians were clearly the dominant power. They offered little and demanded much. But Ji-hun knew this was just the opening. Real diplomacy took time. Finally, the Queen stood. Ambassador Velrin will show you to your quarters. Tomorrow evening, there will be a ceremonial gathering in the Hall of Reflections. You will attend. It was not a request. The next day passed in meetings and briefings. Ji-hun and his team toured parts of the station, always escorted by Valorian guards. Everywhere they went, Ji-hun noticed the same thing. The Valorians moved carefully. They never took risks. They avoided anything that might cause damage. In the afternoon, they were shown the Hall of Reflections. It was another massive room with crystal walls and a high ceiling. A large platform stood at one end, held up by huge crystalline beams that grew from the floor. Ji-hun stopped walking. He looked at one of the support beams closely. Something wrong? Woojin asked. Look at this. Ji-hun pointed at the base of the beam. There was a hairline fracture running through the crystal. It was barely visible, but it was there. This is unstable. Ambassador Velrin turned back. The Hall of Reflections has stood for 3,000 years, human. Our engineers monitor every structure constantly. But there's a crack, Ji-hun insisted. Our sensors detect no weakness. Velrin's tone made it clear the discussion was over. That evening, Ji-hun dressed in his formal uniform. His team did the same. They walked to the Hall of Reflections with a group of Valorian officials. The room was full now, with hundreds of Valorians standing in neat groups. They all glowed softly, making the room look like it was full of living stars. Queen Ravia stood on the platform, addressing the crowd. She spoke about tradition, about the strength of the Valorian Empire, about the caution required when dealing with younger species. Ji-hun listened, but part of his mind kept returning to that cracked beam. The Queen's voice rang through the hall. We are eternal because we are careful. We are strong because we do not break. We are... A sound cut through her words. A sharp crack. Like ice breaking. Ji-hun's head snapped up. The beam. The one he had warned them about. The fracture was spreading, racing up the crystal structure. The entire support was failing. Time seemed to slow down. The beam began to tilt. It was falling toward the platform, toward the Queen. The Valorian guards were frozen in shock. They weren't used to disasters. They didn't know how to react fast. But Ji-hun knew how to react. Humans were good at disasters. He ran. His legs pumped hard. His heart hammered in his chest. The beam was falling, huge and heavy, refracting light as it came down. Queen Ravia stood frozen, her glowing eyes wide. Ji-hun hit the platform at full speed. He crashed into the Queen with his shoulder, shoving her sideways with all his strength. The Queen fell, tumbling across the platform in a shower of crystalline sparks. The beam fell too. It hit Ji-hun with the force of a collapsing building. He heard bones break, felt his ribs crack. His left arm was crushed beneath tons of crystal. Then there was pain. So much pain that the world turned white. He heard screaming. Hana's voice. Taeyang shouting. The crystal floor was cold against his cheek. Something warm was spreading beneath him. Blood. His blood. Through the pain, Ji-hun saw Queen Ravia. She was on her knees, staring at him. Her glowing eyes were filled with something he couldn't name. Horror, maybe. Then Taeyang was there, hands moving fast, and the world began to fade to black. The first thing Ji-hun noticed when he woke was the pain. It was everywhere, but especially in his left side. His arm felt wrong, like it wasn't attached properly. Breathing hurt. Moving hurt. Existing hurt. Don't move. Taeyang's face appeared above him. The medical officer looked tired and worried. You have 4 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and your left arm is completely shattered. I've stabilized you, but you need to stay still. Ji-hun tried to speak, but only managed a weak cough. That hurt too. The Queen is safe, Hana said from somewhere to his right. You saved her life. Memories came back slowly. The falling beam, running, the impact. He turned his head slightly and saw where he was. A medical room with white walls and bright lights. Very different from the crystal architecture of the rest of the station. They built this room for us, Taeyang explained. The Valorians don't have medical facilities like ours. They don't need them. When they break, they die. The door opened. Ji-hoon heard the distinctive sound of crystalline footsteps. He managed to turn his head enough to see Queen Ravia enter the room. She moved slowly, as if she wasn't sure she should be there. "Leave us," she said quietly. Taeyang looked like he wanted to argue, but Hana touched his arm. They both left, though Ji-hoon noticed Taeyang glanced back several times. The queen approached the medical bed. Up close, Ji-hoon could see that her crystal body was unmarked. Not a single scratch from when he had pushed her. Of course not. He had taken all the damage. "You should not be alive," Queen Ravia said. Her voice was soft, almost confused. "I saw what happened. The beam struck you with enough force to shatter a Valorian instantly. Yet you breathe. You speak. How?" Ji-hoon tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "Tough." The queen repeated the word like it was foreign. She reached out slowly and touched the edge of his medical bed. "I have ruled for 600 years. I have seen wars, disasters, plagues. I have watched my people die from injuries far less severe than yours. A cracked limb means amputation or death. A broken core means immediate death. But you have multiple fractures, internal damage, and yet, you live. I do not understand." "We heal," Ji-hoon said. Each word was an effort. "Give me time. I'll be fine." The queen's glowing eyes widened. "Heal? You speak as if your body will repair itself." "It will. That is impossible." Ji-hoon would have laughed if it wouldn't have hurt so much. "Not for humans. We're made different than you. Our bones can grow back together. Our organs can repair themselves. It takes time. But we heal." Queen Ravia stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised him. She pulled up a chair and sat down beside his bed. "Tell me how this works." Over the next hour, Ji-hoon explained human biology as best as he could. He told her about bone cells that rebuilt fractures, about skin that knit itself back together, about the immune system that fought infections and inflammation, that was actually the body's way of healing. The queen listened to every word, asking questions that showed she was trying to understand something completely alien to her experience. "So you will survive this injury," she finally said. "You will walk again. Use your arm again." "Eventually, yes." "Remarkable." She stood up. "You saved my life, Ji-hoon of Earth. That is a debt I cannot easily repay. Rest now. I will return." She did return. Every day. Sometimes twice a day. The queen came to the medical room. She watched as Taeyang changed bandages, as Ji-hoon slowly regained strength, as the swelling in his arm went down. She asked endless questions about human medicine, about healing, about how humans could possibly survive injuries that would kill her people. On the third day, Ji-hoon was able to sit up. His ribs were healing faster than expected, Taeyang said. The lung had reinflated properly. The arm was still bad, but not as bad as it had been. "I brought you something," Queen Ravia said during her afternoon visit. She held out a data tablet. "These are medical records from my people. I want you to understand what you did. Well, want you Kanta, want you Armas, want you to understand what you did." Ji-hoon took the tablet with his good hand. The files showed Valorian injuries. Every single one was permanent. A cracked finger never healed. A fractured leg meant years of careful bracing or amputation. A major injury to the torso meant death within hours. There were no exceptions. "We cannot heal," the queen said quietly. "Our bodies are crystalline, perfect, but static. Once formed, we cannot change." A child who breaks a bone will carry that damage for 2,000 years. Most choose not to live with such disability. Ji-hoon understood what she wasn't saying. They chose death instead. That's why you're all so careful, he said. We have no choice. Every movement carries risk. Every action might be our last. We have long lives, but we live them in fear. She looked at him. You do not have fear. You ran toward danger to save me. A stranger. An alien. Why? Ji-hoon thought about it. Because I could. Because someone needed help. Because that's what humans do. We run toward trouble. Not away from it. Maybe because we know we can heal. Or maybe we're just stupid. The queen made a sound that might have been a laugh. Not stupid. Brave. Incredibly, impossibly brave. On the 5th day, Ji-hoon stood up for the first time. His ribs ached but held. His arm was in a brace, but Taeyang said the bones were already beginning to knit. In a few weeks, he would have full use of it again. Queen Ravia watched him walk slowly across the room. This should not be possible, she whispered. 5 days ago, you were dying. Now, you walk. I told you, humans heal. I am beginning to understand that you are not like us at all. We are strong because we do not break. You are strong because you break and then repair. I do not know which is better. Ji-hoon leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Maybe neither is better. Just different. The queen was silent for a moment. May I touch your arm? The injured one? Ji-hoon nodded. She reached out carefully and placed her crystalline hand on the brace. He could feel the coolness through the material. I can feel warmth, she said, wonder in her voice. Your body is hot. Is this the healing? Partly. Blood flow helps injuries heal. Inflammation brings repair cells to damaged areas. It all creates heat. Your body fights to repair itself. She pulled her hand back slowly. In all my years, I have never seen such a thing. My people simply accept damage. We do not fight it. We cannot. A thought seemed to occur to her. Your species must be covered in scars. Evidence of every injury you have survived. Ji-hoon smiled. Yeah. Wanna see? He pulled down the collar of his medical gown and showed her an old scar on his shoulder. Broke my collarbone when I was 12. Fell off my bike. It healed. It healed. He showed her another scar on his hand. Cut it open on glass when I was 16. Needed stitches. It healed. It healed. The queen stared at the scars like they were precious jewels. You carry proof of every time you broke and survived. These marks are not shame. They are victory. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess they are. Queen Ravia stood up straighter. I must go. The council is demanding my attention. There are those who are unhappy that I spend so much time with a human. But I will return tomorrow. Your Majesty, Ji-hoon said, as she reached the door. Thank you. For visiting. For trying to understand us. She looked back. It is I who should thank you. You showed me something I thought impossible. You gave your body to save mine, and your body is repairing itself. You are teaching me that perhaps there is more than one way to be strong. After she left, Hana came back in. She visits you every day. Do you know what that means? Ji-hoon shook his head. It means she's changing how she thinks about humans. About life. About everything. Hana grinned. You might have just changed galactic politics by getting crushed. Great, Ji-hoon said, easing himself back onto the bed. Next time, I'll try to change politics without breaking half my bones. But as he lay there, feeling his body slowly knit itself back together, he thought about what the queen had said. 2 species, both strong, but in completely different ways. Valorians who never broke. Humans who broke constantly but healed. Maybe that was what the galaxy needed. Different kinds of strength, working together. His ribs twinged. His arm ached. But under all the pain, Ji-hoon could feel his body healing. Cell by cell. Bone by bone. Putting itself back together. It was a good feeling. 2 weeks had passed since the accident. Ji-hoon could walk without help now, though he still moved carefully. His ribs had healed enough that breathing didn't hurt anymore. The arm was better too. Taeyang had removed the heavy brace and replaced it with a lighter support. Queen Ravia came to visit him in the gardens. The Valorians had created a space for the human delegation, with earth plants grown under artificial sunlight. It was nice to see green-growing things again, after so much crystal. "You are walking better," the queen observed. She moved beside him along the path, her crystalline body catching the light. "Much better. Taeyang says I'm healing faster than expected. He thinks it's because I'm young and was healthy before the injury." "Young." The queen made a thoughtful sound. "You are 32 years old. A child by our standards. Yet you have lived a full life already. Traveled to other worlds, become a diplomat, saved a queen." She paused. "How many more years do you have, Ji-hoon? If I'm lucky, maybe 50 or 60 more years. 70 if I'm really lucky and take care of myself. So brief, how do you bear it, knowing your time is so short?" Ji-hoon sat down on a bench. The queen sat beside him, something he noticed she only did in private now. In public, she maintained distance. But here, she acted almost like a friend. "I don't think about it much," Ji-hoon admitted. "Humans don't really believe we're going to die. I mean, we know it intellectually. But it doesn't feel real until we're old. We just live. We make plans. We try things. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we get hurt. But we keep going. You accept risk because you can heal. Maybe. Or maybe we accept risk because life is too short not to. If I only have 80 years, I want to fill them with experiences, with meaning. I don't want to spend them being careful." The queen was quiet for a long moment. "I have lived 600 years," she finally said. "I will likely live 2,000 more. Do you know what I have done with this vast time?" Ji-hoon waited. "I have been careful. I have avoided risk. I have protected myself and my people. I have been a good queen, by our standards. But I have not lived the way you describe living. I have existed. I have maintained. But have I truly lived? You rule an empire. That seems pretty significant. I rule an empire in decline." The queen's voice was sad. "We were once explorers, adventurers. We built ships and traveled to new worlds. We created art that spanned solar systems. We were magnificent. But that was 5,000 years ago. Now we stay in our crystal stations and congratulate ourselves on our caution. We have long lives, but we do nothing with them. We are so afraid of breaking that we have become frozen." She turned to look at him. "Your people have only been in space for a few hundred years. Yet you have spread to dozens of worlds. You take risks that horrify us. You die in accidents that would never happen if you were more careful. But you grow. You change. You live." "We're reckless," Ji-hoon said. "Sometimes that's not a good thing. Perhaps. But perhaps recklessness is better than paralysis." Over the next few days, Ji-hoon noticed a change in the queen. She walked a little faster, stood a little straighter. She began making decisions that surprised her council. She approved new exploration missions that had been delayed for decades. She authorized cultural exchanges with human colonies. She even started an initiative to study human medical techniques to see if any principles could be adapted to Valorian biology. The council was not happy. Lord Cavrix, the head of the conservative faction, came to visit Ji-hoon. The old Valorian was dark, red crystal, ancient and imposing. He did not sit down. "You have corrupted our queen," Cavrix said bluntly. "I saved her life, and in doing so, you have filled her head with dangerous ideas. She speaks of taking risks, of exploration, of change. These things are not our way. Maybe your way needs to change." Cavrix's eyes flared bright. "You dare." "I dare," Ji-hoon said, standing up to face him. "Your civilization is dying. Everyone can see it but you. You're so busy being careful that you've forgotten how to grow. The Queen sees that. She's trying to save your people. By making us more like you. Reckless, short-lived, fragile. We're not fragile. We're resilient. There's a difference. You break easily. And we heal. You don't break. But when you do, it's over. Kavrik stared at him for a long moment. The Queen has been compromised. The Council is considering removing her from power. On what grounds? Unsound judgment. Putting the Empire at risk. He leaned forward. And you will help us prove it. I won't help you overthrow her. You will submit to the trial of worthiness. An ancient test of leadership. If you fail, it will prove that the Queen's judgment is flawed, that humans are not worthy of alliance or trust, that everything she has done in the past weeks has been a mistake. And if I refuse, then we will assume you know you would fail. The result will be the same. The alliance will be rejected. The Queen will be questioned. Her rule will end. Kavrix left before Ji-hoon could respond. When Queen Ravia heard about it, she came to him immediately. She looked angry in a way he hadn't seen before. Her crystal body glowed brighter than usual. You will not do this, she said. Kavrix is trying to trap you. The trial of worthiness was designed for Valorians, for our crystalline bodies and our abilities. You cannot possibly survive it. What is it exactly? An obstacle course through a hazardous environment. Sharp edges. Extreme temperatures. Toxic gases. Narrow passages. It was created to test the worthiness of potential council members. Candidates must complete it without sustaining damage. For us, a single mistake means death or permanent injury. Supporter, has anyone ever been hurt during the trial? 3 candidates have died in the past 1,000 years. Many more have withdrawn, rather than risk it. But some have completed it. Yes, those who were careful enough, precise enough, perfect enough. She gripped his shoulders. You are still healing. Your arm is not at full strength. Your ribs are not fully solid. If you attempt this trial now, you will be injured, possibly killed. But I could complete it, right? It's physically possible for a human to finish? I don't know. No organic being has ever attempted it. Ji-hoon, please, do not do this. I will not let Kavrix force you into this trap. What will happen if I refuse? The Queen's glow dimmed. He will use it against both of us. The Council will claim I have been blinded by sentimentality. They will say, I cannot be trusted to make sound decisions. They will remove me from power. And the alliance? There will be no alliance. Kavrix and his faction will isolate the Valorian Empire further. We will continue our slow decline into irrelevance. Ji-hoon thought about it. About everything that was at stake. Not just the alliance between humans and Valorians, but the Queen's vision of a better future for her people. I'll do it, he said. No. I forbid it. You can't forbid it. Kavrix made it a challenge. If I back down, we lose. If I try and fail, we lose. But if I try and succeed, we win everything. You are not fully healed. I'm healed enough, and I'm human. We're good at pushing through pain. We're good at surviving things we shouldn't. The Queen's eyes met his. Why would you risk this? We have known each other such a short time. This is not your fight. It is my fight. You changed your whole perspective because you watched me heal. You started seeing possibilities instead of limitations. You started believing your people could be more than they are. That happened because of me. So, yeah, it's my fight. I do not want you to be hurt again. I know. But sometimes getting hurt is part of the job. Queen Ravia was silent for a long time. Finally, she nodded. If you are determined to do this, then I will support you. But know that I do not do so lightly. You have become important to me, as a friend. as a symbol of something I had forgotten we could be. If you die in that trial, you will not be the only one who suffers. Then I won't die, Ji-hoon said, with more confidence than he felt. I'll complete your trial. I'll show Cavrix and the whole council what humans can do. And when I'm done, maybe your people will stop being so afraid. The queen reached out and gently touched his healing arm. You are either the bravest being I have ever met, or the most foolish. Can't it be both? Despite everything, she smiled. Perhaps it can. The trial was set for 3 days hence. Ji-hoon spent those days preparing. Taeyang ran him through medical scans and declared him as healed as he was going to get. Woojin drilled him on endurance and pain management. Hana researched everything she could find about the trial of worthiness and briefed him on what to expect. On the night before the trial, Ji-hoon sat alone in the gardens. His arm ached. His ribs twinged when he breathed deep. He wasn't at full strength, but he was human, and humans didn't need to be perfect. They just needed to be tough enough. The queen found him there, sitting under Earth's moon projected on the garden ceiling. I brought you something, she said. She held out a small crystal. It is traditional for Valorians to carry a luck stone into the trial. I know humans do not share our customs, but I would like you to have this. Ji-hoon took the crystal. It was warm from her touch and glowed softly. Thank you. They sat together in silence, watching the false moon rise. Tomorrow would come. The trial would happen. And Ji-hoon would show them all what it meant to be human. The trial chamber was enormous. Ji-hoon stood at the entrance and looked at the obstacle course that stretched before him. Crystal formations jutted up from the floor at sharp angles. Steam rose from vents in the walls. Narrow platforms crossed gaps that dropped into darkness. At the far end, maybe half a kilometer away, he could see the exit portal glowing. Behind him, the observation gallery was packed. Every member of the Valorian Council had come. Hundreds of other Valorians filled the seats, and in the center of it all, on a raised platform, Queen Ravia sat on a smaller version of her throne. Her crystalline body was dimmed, almost gray. She looked worried. Lord Cavrix stood beside the entrance. His red crystal body gleamed with satisfaction. The rules are simple, human. Complete the trial without assistance. Any help from your team results in immediate failure. You must reach the exit portal. What about time limit? There is none. Though I suspect the toxic gases will provide their own deadline. Cavrix smiled, and it was not friendly. You may begin when ready. Or withdraw now. With no shame, Ji-hoon looked at his team. Taeyang gave him a thumbs up. Woojin nodded firmly. Hana just mouthed the words, "You've got this." He looked up at Queen Ravia. She met his eyes and placed one crystal hand over her heart, a Valorian gesture of solidarity. Ji-hoon took a deep breath. His ribs twitched, but held. He stepped into the chamber. The door sealed behind him with a hiss. The first section was the field of blades. Crystal spikes rose from the floor in irregular patterns. They were sharp enough to cut clean through Valorian crystal bodies. For Ji-hoon, they were just really dangerous knives. He moved carefully at first, testing his footing. The floor was smooth crystal, slightly slippery. He placed each foot deliberately, weaving between the spikes. A sharp edge caught his leg and sliced through his pants, drawing blood. He hissed in pain, but kept moving. In the observation gallery, he heard gasps. The Valorians weren't used to seeing blood. He made it through the field of blades with several cuts on his legs and one on his arm. Not deep, but they stung. He could already feel his body responding, starting the clotting process. By tomorrow, these cuts would be scabbed over. In a week, they would be fading scars. The second section was worse, the heat corridor. The walls radiated intense warmth, hot enough that the air shimmered. For Valorians, extreme temperatures could cause their crystal structures to crack. For Ji-hoon, it was just extremely uncomfortable. He pushed forward, feeling sweat pour down his face. His skin turned red from the heat. His breathing got harder. But humans were built to deal with heat. Sweating cooled him. His body regulated temperature. He was designed for this in ways Valorians weren't. Halfway through the corridor, he had to stop and pour water from his canteen over his head. The rules said no assistance. But they didn't say he couldn't bring supplies. He drank deeply, feeling the water restore him, then pushed on. When he emerged from the heat corridor, his skin was burned in places. Not badly, but enough that it hurt. He didn't stop to check the damage. He could heal later. Right now, he needed to keep moving. The third section was a maze of narrow passages. Some were barely wide enough for his shoulders. He had to squeeze through gaps that scraped skin off his arms and back. A Valorian would have had to move with perfect precision to avoid damage. Ji-hoon just forced his way through, accepting the scrapes as the cost of speed. His arm was really hurting now. The still healing bone didn't like being stressed, but it held. That was all that mattered. As PM. Well, 3-1, to that third. That was all that mattered. The fourth section nearly stopped him. A series of platforms hung suspended over a deep pit. The platforms were far apart, requiring jumps that pushed the limits of human capability. And they were covered in some kind of frost that made them slippery. Ji-hoon stood at the edge of the first platform and calculated distances. For a Valorian, this section would require perfect precision. One slip, one miscalculation, and they would fall. Game over. But Ji-hoon had an advantage. If he slipped, if he fell short, if he miscalculated, his body could take the impact. He wouldn't shatter like crystal. He would bruise, maybe break something. But he wouldn't die. That knowledge made all the difference. He ran and jumped. His feet hit the platform and slipped immediately on the ice. He went down hard on his side. Pain exploded through his ribs. But he was on the platform. He hadn't fallen. He pulled himself up and kept going. Jump after jump. Sometimes he landed clean. Sometimes he slipped and caught himself at the last second. Once he missed entirely and had to grab the edge of a platform, his fingers screaming in protest as he hauled himself up. His body was accumulating damage. More cuts. More bruises. His ribs were definitely re-injured. But he was still moving. In the gallery, the Valorians watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. A being that took damage, but kept going. That fell, but got back up. That bled, but didn't stop. Queen Ravia gripped her throne so hard that small cracks appeared in the armrests. The fifth section was the gas chamber. Ji-hoon knew this was designed to be lethal. Toxic fumes that would slowly poison anyone who stayed in them too long. The solution was to move fast and hold your breath as much as possible. He pulled his shirt up over his mouth and nose. Not perfect protection, but better than nothing. Then he ran. The gas burned his eyes, made his throat close. His lungs screamed for air. Halfway through, he had to breathe, and the toxic air made him cough and choke. But human lungs were resilient. They could take damage and recover. He pushed through the pain, through the burning, through the desperate need to stop and catch his breath. He burst out of the gas chamber gasping and dizzy. His eyes were watering so badly he could barely see. But the exit portal was right there. Just a few more meters. He stumbled forward. His legs barely worked. His whole body was screaming at him to stop, to rest, to give up. Every injury he had taken was making itself known. The cuts burned. The bruises throbbed. His ribs felt like they were on fire. His arm was agony. But the portal was there. Ji-hoon took one step. Then another. Then another. Behind him, he could hear the Valorians. They were cheering. Actual cheering. Even the ones who had wanted him to fail couldn't help themselves. They were watching something they had never imagined possible. Ji-hoon reached the exit portal. He touched it with one bloody hand. The trial was complete. He collapsed immediately after. Taeyang was there in seconds. Medical kit open. Scanning him frantically. You insane. Stupid. Brave idiot. The medical officer muttered as he worked. You made everything worse. Your ribs are rebroken. Your arm has new fractures. You have cuts, burns, chemical exposure, and possibly a concussion. But I made it. Ji-hoon gasped. You made it. The gallery had erupted. Valorians were standing, their crystalline bodies glowing bright with excitement. They were talking over each other, pointing at Ji-hoon, replaying what they had just witnessed on their devices. Lord Kavrik stood frozen at his observation point. His red crystal body had gone dark. He had no words. Queen Ravia descended from her platform and walked across the trial chamber floor. The crowd fell silent. She moved with perfect grace, but faster than Ji-hoon had ever seen her move before. She knelt beside him where he lay on the floor. You did it, she said softly. You actually did it. Told you. I would, Ji-hoon managed. You are bleeding. Damaged. You will need weeks to heal from this. Worth it. The Queen looked up at her council, at Lord Kavrik's specifically. When she spoke, her voice rang through the chamber. I asked this human for nothing. Lord Kavrix challenged him, put him in a trial designed to kill. And he completed it. Not through perfection, not through avoiding damage, but through endurance, through resilience, through the courage to accept injury and continue anyway. She stood, helping Ji-hoon to his feet. He swayed, but remained standing. My people, the Queen continued, addressing the entire gallery. For 600 years I have ruled you. I have been careful. I have protected you. I have followed every tradition and custom. And in that time, what have we accomplished? What have we built? What have we become? The gallery was silent. We have become afraid. We fear damage so much that we dare not act. We protect ourselves so carefully that we no longer live. We congratulate ourselves on survival, while our civilization slowly dies from inaction. She gestured to Ji-hoon. Look at this human. He is broken, bleeding. His body is damaged in a dozen places. By our standards, he should be dead. By our standards, he has failed to complete the trial properly because he has sustained injury. Kavrik started to speak, but the Queen silenced him with a look. But he is not dead. He did not fail. He succeeded through means we cannot understand. And he did so because humans know something we have forgotten. That sometimes you must break in order to become stronger. That damage can be repaired. That risk is necessary for growth. She looked down at Ji-hoon. I declare this human worthy. Worthy of our respect. Worthy of our alliance. Worthy of our friendship. And any who disagree may challenge my judgment directly. Nobody spoke. Even Kavrix remained silent. Furthermore, the Queen said, her voice taking on a harder edge, I declare that the Valorian Empire will no longer live in fear. We will explore. We will build. We will risk. And yes, some of us may break. But perhaps that is better than slowly crystallizing into irrelevance. The gallery erupted again. This time, the cheers were for both Ji-hoon and the Queen. Taeyang got Ji-hoon back to the medical bay. As he worked to treat all the new injuries, he shook his head. You know what the worst part is? You probably set the alliance negotiations back by 2 months, because now you need to heal. Again. Ji-hoon laughed, then winced because laughing hurt. Worth it. Stop saying that. Can't. It's true. Later, after Taeyang had finished patching him up, Queen Ravia visited. She sat beside his bed like she had 3 weeks ago. You are a mystery to me, she said. You damage yourself repeatedly. You take pain that would destroy my people. And you call it worth it. It is worth it. Look what happened. Kavrix failed. The council saw what humans can do. You made a speech that will change your whole civilization. Perhaps. But you paid a heavy price. Prices are meant to be paid. Ji-hoon shifted carefully on the bed. Everything hurt. But it was the good kind of hurt. The kind that came from doing something important. Besides, I'll heal. In a month, I'll be fine. In 3 months, these will just be more scars. The queen reached out and touched his hand carefully. More proof of survival. Exactly. I am learning, she said softly. Learning that there is more than one way to be strong. That perfection is not the only path. That sometimes breaking and healing makes you stronger than never breaking at all. She stood to leave, but paused at the door. Thank you, Ji-hoon of Earth, for saving my life, for completing the trial, for teaching me to live again. After she left, Ji-hoon lay in the medical bay and smiled despite the pain. He had done it. Proved what humans could do. Changed the course of history between 2 species, and all it cost was a few more scars. 6 months had passed since the trial. Ji-hoon stood on the observation deck of his ship and watched Crystalline Station grow larger in the viewport. He was coming back to the Valorian capital, but this time as Earth's official ambassador. The title felt heavy, but good. His arm had healed completely. The ribs, too. He had a collection of new scars to add to his old ones. The burns from the heat corridor had left marks on his shoulders. The cuts from the field of blades had made thin white lines on his legs. He wore them without shame. Nervous? Hana asked. She was still his communications specialist, though now she headed a department of 12. A lot has changed. That's an understatement. She was right. The past 6 months had been remarkable. After Ji-hoon's completion of the trial, the Valorian Council had voted to approve the alliance with humanity. Not just a trade agreement or a mutual defense pact, but a full cultural and scientific exchange. Humans and Valorians working together. More than that, Queen Ravia had begun what the Valorian media was calling the Great Awakening. She had pushed through reforms that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Exploration fleets were being assembled. Research stations were being built. Young Valorians were being encouraged to take risks, to try new things, to accept that damage could be part of growth. It wasn't without resistance. Lord Cavrix had retired in disgrace, but his faction still existed. There were Valorians who thought the Queen was leading them to ruin, who believed that humans were corrupting their culture. But they were a minority now. The ship docked smoothly. Ji-hoon and his team disembarked into a station that looked both familiar and different. The crystal architecture was the same, but there were changes. More color. More activity. Valorians moved with slightly less caution, slightly more confidence. And there, waiting at the docking bay, was Queen Ravia. She looked different, too. Her crystalline body was brighter, more vibrant. She moved with a grace that seemed less like caution and more like joy. Ambassador Ji-hoon, she said formally. Then she smiled, and the formality dropped away. Welcome home. It's good to be back, Your Majesty. Please, when we are in private, call me Ravia. We have been through too much together for titles. She led them through the station, pointing out changes as they walked. A new research wing studying human medical techniques. A training facility where young Valorians practiced calculated risk-taking. A memorial garden dedicated to embracing imperfection. This is what you inspired, Ravia said as they walked through the garden. Crystal flowers grew alongside earth plants. It was beautiful in an unexpected way. A celebration of different ways of being, of different strengths. Lutasong. Lutasong. I just survived some injuries. You did much more than that. You showed us that there was another way to live. She touched one of the earth roses, carefully avoiding the thorns. I have lived 600 years. In all that time, I never took a risk I didn't have to take. Never challenged myself. Never truly lived. And then I watched you break and heal. And I realized how much I had wasted. They sat on a bench, surrounded by hybrid gardens. Ji-hoon noticed that other Valorians were there too, walking among the plants. Some were actually touching the thorny roses, accepting small scratches with something like wonder. "How are the reforms going?" he asked. "Better than I hoped. We launched 3 exploration ships last month. The first Valorian exploration missions in 400 years. We are building new colonies on worlds we abandoned centuries ago. We are creating art again. Taking chances. Living." She paused. "Not all of my people are happy. Some say I am destroying our culture, that I am making us too much like humans. What do you say?" "I say that a culture that cannot change is already dead. We were dying, Ji-hoon. Slowly, carefully, perfectly dying. Now we are alive again. Messy, imperfect, but alive." Over the next days, Ji-hoon settled into his role as ambassador. There were meetings with the council, negotiations about trade routes, discussions about cultural exchange programs. It was boring diplomatic work, but important. But the most important meetings were the informal ones. Ji-hoon met with young Valorians who wanted to visit Earth, with scientists who wanted to study human healing, with artists who were creating works about resilience and change. He told them stories about humanity, about how humans fell down and got back up, about how every scar was a story of survival. One evening, Ravia invited him to her private chambers. It was a huge honor. Few non-Valorians had ever seen the Queen's personal spaces. The rooms were beautiful. Crystal formations grew from the walls like frozen waterfalls. Light moved through everything, creating patterns that shifted and changed. But there were new additions. A painting from Earth. A plant growing in a pot. A small collection of stones from different worlds. "I have been collecting imperfect things," Ravia explained, "reminding myself that beauty does not require perfection." She showed him something else. A data tablet, displaying plans for a new type of Valorian architecture. Buildings designed with deliberately rough edges, mixed materials, spaces that changed over time. "We are learning to embrace imperfection," she said. "It is difficult. Every instinct tells us to be smooth, perfect, unchanging. But we are trying. That's all anyone can do. Try." Ravia set down the tablet and looked at him seriously. "I need to tell you something. When you first arrived, I saw humans as mayflies. Brief. Insignificant. Barely worth noticing. Now I see you as something much more important. You are teachers. You are showing us how to live again. You're giving us too much credit." "I do not think so. You saved my life twice. Once from the falling beam, once from the slow death of fear. I value your friendship, Ji-hoon, more than I can express. In 600 years, I have had advisors, subjects, allies, but few friends. You are one of them. I value your friendship too." They stood there for a moment, two beings from different worlds, connected by shared experience. "There is something else," Ravia said. "I want to show you what we are building. A monument. Will you come with me?" She led him through the station to a new section still under construction. Workers moved carefully, but with purpose. And in the center of the large space, a sculpture was taking shape. It was made of mixed materials, crystal and metal and stone. It showed two figures. One crystalline, one organic. Standing together. "It is called different strengths," Ravia explained. "A reminder that there are many ways to be strong. Many ways to survive. Many ways to thrive." Ji-hoon looked at the sculpture, at his own image rendered in metal and stone. "I don't know if I deserve this. You saved my life. You changed my civilization. You showed us how to live again. You deserve this, and more." She smiled. "Besides, humans like monuments. I did my research." "That's true. We do like monuments. They watched the workers for a while longer. Then Ravya spoke quietly. I have a request. I want to establish a permanent human embassy here. With you, as the ambassador. I want you to stay, to continue teaching us, to be here as we learn to embrace change. That's a big commitment, I know. And I know you have a short life by our standards. But even a few decades of your presence would be invaluable to us. You have already changed so much in 6 months. Imagine what you could do in years. Ji-hoon thought about it. About Earth, where he could return to a normal diplomatic career. About the Valorian Empire, where he could help shape the future of an ancient civilization. About Ravya, who had become a true friend despite all their differences. I'll do it, he said. I'll stay. On one condition. Name it. You have to promise to keep taking risks. Keep pushing your people to grow. Don't let them fall back into fear. Ravya's eyes glowed bright. I promise. We will grow. We will change. We will live. And you will be here. To witness it. The months turned into years. Ji-hoon watched the Valorian Empire transform. Exploration ships brought back discoveries from distant worlds. Artists created works that would have been unthinkable before. Scientists made breakthroughs by combining Valorian and human knowledge. Young Valorians started traveling to Earth, learning about human culture, bringing back stories of a species that lived fast and fully. There were setbacks. Some Valorians died in accidents that their ancestors would have avoided. Some exploration missions failed. Some experiments went wrong. But the Valorians were learning to accept these losses as part of growth. Learning that progress had a price, and that price was worth paying. Ji-hoon accumulated more scars. A burn from helping fight a fire in a research lab. A broken finger from slipping on a crystal floor. A cut from helping install new equipment. Each time, the Valorians watched with fascination as he healed. Some of the younger ones started talking about scars as marks of courage rather than shame. Ravya changed too. She laughed more, moved faster, made bolder decisions. One day she told Ji-hoon that she had done more in the past 3 years than in her previous 600, that she finally understood what it meant to truly live. 5 years after Ji-hoon had first arrived at Crystalline Station, they stood together at the dedication of a new space dock. It was the largest construction project the Valorians had attempted in millennia. A massive station designed for both Valorian and human ships, a symbol of their alliance. 5 years, Ravya said, watching ships come and go from the dock. Such a brief time for my people. But we have changed more in these 5 years than in 5 centuries before. Change is good. Change is necessary. Though sometimes painful. She looked at him. You have gray hair now. I did not notice it appearing. Time moves so quickly for you. Ji-hoon touched his hair self-consciously. He was 37 now. Not old by human standards, but older. Yeah, that happens to us. It frightens me. That you will age and die while I continue. That one day I will lose you. That's part of being friends with humans. We don't last long. But we burn bright while we're here. Ravya was quiet for a moment. Teach me to accept this. To value the time we have, rather than fear the time we do not. You already know how. You learn to embrace imperfection. To take risks. To accept that things break and change. This is just one more thing to accept. Perhaps, she smiled. But I will make the most of the time we have. And when you are gone, I will remember. I will tell other Valorians about the human who taught us to live, about the ambassador who saved a queen and changed an empire, about the friend who showed us that different strengths can work together. That sounds like a good story. It is a true story. The best kind. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ships, human vessels and Valorian vessels, working side by side. 2 species that had almost nothing in common. finding ways to complement each other. The fragile and the unbreaking, the short-lived and the ancient, the healers and the eternal. Ji-hoon thought about the day he had pushed the queen out of the way of a falling beam. How that single moment of human instinct had changed everything. How his injury and recovery had amazed an alien species. How his willingness to break and heal had taught them to live again. His arm still ached sometimes where it had been crushed. His ribs twinged when the weather changed. But these pains were reminders of survival, of friendship, of making a difference. He had more years ahead of him. Maybe 30, maybe 40 if he was lucky. And he would spend them here, among the Valorians, helping them continue to change and grow, teaching them about resilience, about imperfection, about the beauty of healing. It wasn't a bad way to spend a life. Thank you, Ravya said quietly. For what? For being breakable. For being healable. For being human. She looked at him with glowing eyes full of warmth. For being my friend. 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 Ji-hoon smiled. Thank you for being willing to learn. For being brave enough to change. For being you. The stars shone above them through the crystal dome of the station. Humans and Valorians moved together through the corridors below. Two species, working together, learning from each other, building something new. And in the center of it all, a human and a queen stood side by side. Different strengths, different lives. But together, they had changed the galaxy. Ji-hoon's scars ached a little. He smiled. It had all been worth it.